All right. You're probably wondering why the Brady Bunch is playing, and that's really because I've always wanted to do that. And today, Kuba gave me the chance to do that, so thank you very much for that. With the square view that you're probably looking at right now, this is your panel, and my name is Katrina Kibben. I'm the founder and CEO of 3 Ears Media, and today I'm going to be leading this conversation about how we can bridge the gap to bringing more junior tech talent into our companies. I did a lot of research as we were kind of backing into this, and I'm really, really excited to have all of these people to give you some real practical advice because they all sit on some side of this equation. And so I want to start by introducing all of them, letting all of you meet each of them and understand their role in this world of hiring junior talent, and then we'll jump into the content. So Kuba, I'd love if you got started, and yeah, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Kuba. I'm developer evangelist at Colleen. And throughout my career, I went through all the possible technical roles, being a software developer, and then team leader, tech leader, hiring manager. And I kind of dedicated all my career into serving developers. I organized a lot of conferences and hackathons. So I really know the crowd. So very happy to be part of this webinar.
Thank you for being here. Colleen, you're up next.
Awesome. So I'm Colleen. I'm the Global Campus Recruiting Manager at HubSpot. A lot of what I do, of course, is hire junior talent into HubSpot, but in particular, a lot of our programming that we put together is more than just getting people jobs at HubSpot. We want to make sure that if you're engaging with us, you're learning something whenever possible. So whether it's how to be a better engineer, how to be better in your job search, how to write a good resume, that's a lot of what we're doing. So I work with junior talent every single day. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. Kathy.
So I'm the university recruiter for Okta, and Okta, what we do identity access management. So everything from single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, API management, all kinds of things like that. I hire every intern for Okta, and I hire all of what we call new grad engineers. So rather than emerging talent or young talent, we call it new grad. I hire all of those folks.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have all of you here because, when I started looking into this topic and kind of learning more about it as someone who really focuses on the communication piece, I think there was a real breakdown between what recruiters are putting online about hiring junior talent and their thoughts and frustrations, and I'll just leave it at that. And then on the other side of it, we have the actual junior talent and engineers who are telling a completely different story, one where they're really talking about why they feel that they aren't being given opportunities. So I want to start this panel by asking what you're hearing from junior talent right now. Colleen, I'd love to start with you since you're talking to people every day, and then Kathy, you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I hear constantly is, how am I supposed to get an internship when they are already asking for experience before I'm even at that point? And I think that's one of the things that is what's creating this gap. It's like, okay, great, you need an internship in order to get a full-time job, but how am I going to get that internship without any experience? And it's just this circle of where does it end? So I think that's one of the things that I'm hearing a lot, and that we're redefining our program and how we hire to make sure that previous experience is not a requirement coming into our positions, and really focusing on what's your ability to learn. How are you going to be able to jump in and learn new things? But it's a work in progress, because you definitely still hear that a lot of companies are focusing on okay, great, you need to hit the ground running as soon as you're here. You need to know all these things, and that doesn't really make sense for any junior talent.
Absolutely. Are you hearing the same thing, Kathy?
Yeah, and I think it's coming especially for people who aren't taking what I would call a linear path, where you go to one of the top 10 universities and get a CS degree. What happens if you do go to, to a different type of school where you're, picking up these talents? I think it can be much harder. On our end, what needs to happen is education of our hiring managers as to what is young talent, emerging talent, junior talent, new grad, what the expectations are. I know our SVP of engineering is very good about saying, we know people aren't going to come right out of school with everything they need. So we've set up trainings and, you know, everything from tech talks, trainings, mentors, so that we can help ramp up talent, because we know you're not going to come right in and know everything, just to echo what Colleen was saying.
Yeah. Kuba, as an engineer, do you think that's what engineers are really looking for, is to jump right in?
They certainly need a place to prove themselves, and I guess this might be also like different for like multiple geographical places, like Europe versus United States. But it's like it's probably it's different for like new grads, as we're talking. I don't have like a lot like in common and a lot of connection to actually graduates. I do talk a lot to junior developers, and what I hear mostly is they are unhappy with their jobs. The job is like don't meeting their expectations. And this is like even more true for female junior developers. I was super stunned, super surprised by this, like hearing this. And we actually tried asking this in our like developer survey, which we published in December. And the data confirms this, like junior female developers are less happy and less satisfied with their job. So we're kind of doing something wrong there at the beginning, like at the hiring process.
What are they most dissatisfied with? Is it the work?
So like there's different things, but mostly they duties like don't match their expectations. They thought they were going to do different things that they were given. Sometimes, you know, the stack was different. Like female junior developers cares much more about the stack, and they care much more about, you know, their culture in a company, in their team. So sometimes there's this clash that I landed in this team that I really don't like the vibe. So like these are the things that they're unhappy with.
Yeah. Well, and I'm confident too that being the only woman, the only fill in the blank, that probably drives a lot of that, because these groups are so traditionally male. I'm curious how, inevitably, right, I think that goes back to the hiring manager and how we coach the hiring manager on their expectations. And I'm curious how you can do that in a practical way. And that's an open question for anyone, how we can really coach hiring managers.
One thing that we did, we noticed that kind of our new grad hiring was especially tough. So we sat down with all of the engineering leadership to talk about it. And what we've done with our hiring panels is we've added new grads to our hiring panels, so that there is that insight. Again, it's great if you've got engineers with 10, 15 years experience. Our interviews are tough, they are long, but just having that insight as to someone who's just come out of college has really helped us with our hiring.
Yeah, I think that's a really excellent point. We make sure we do the same thing. We make sure that somebody on every panel that's in that's interviewing for an entry-level position, there's somebody that also came from that, so that we hired into the same way. So that is one move that we make. I also, at HubSpot, we do a lot of trainings, like formal trainings. We actually have somebody on our team who's dedicated to training hiring managers and recruiters on how to be better about these things. So one of the things is about how to hire for potential and how to set those expectations. So we do formal trainings about it, and we get in a room and we talk out scenarios and situations to make sure that when they are, you know, actually in front of a candidate, they're saying the right things and they're evaluating them the right way.
All right, so I'm going to push back. How do you assess potential? And I actually want everyone's answer on this because I think we've all been in a scenario where we've kind of had to assess potential from. That's kind of the reality of junior hiring.
Yeah. So it's the hottest question around here. We talk about it all the time. What does it actually mean to hire people? So one thing that is so awesome for our applicant tracking system here, we use Greenhouse, and Greenhouse has something called Greenhouse Inclusion. It's new. They're rolling it out now. They're trying to figure out how to make it work. But a whole portion of this is called structured interviewing, and it's asking very specific questions and really tailoring your questions so that somebody can take a question and answer it in a way that makes the most sense to them. So for example, if you don't have like a solid example from your background that would be reflective of something, you can still answer this type of question. I think that's a really good way to do it, is to set them up for success in the get-go. Let them actually talk about what they want to talk about. Also at the end of every interview being like, is there anything else that you didn't get to talk about that you really feel is important to share? That's also showing, you're giving them the opportunity to be like, hey, you didn't ask me about this, but I do think it speaks a lot to, you know, who I am as an employee, so I want to be able to capitalize on that. So I think those are some very tactical approaches to doing it.
Absolutely.
I would say another thing, the types of questions that a candidate asks can really show you the potential they have, whether it be in some sort of coding exercise, if you know they're talking with the interviewer the entire way, they're you know asking questions about thought process, to even at the end, questions about the team, questions about the type of work that's going on, questions about the company. It not only shows potential, but it also shows passion.
Totally.
For me, like the most important thing is getting like as much signal as you can. Like actually, when it comes to junior developers, when you can get a signal from some automated assessment tool, it is great. And then like during the interview, I'm looking for a lot of signals. So I always try to organize interview in this like workshopy, coachy kind of way. So I'm trying to get into the situation of working together with this person and see not only how they are performing, but how they are learning, how they are listening, if they're like trying to kind of get this value out of me. So like there's like a lot of signals that you can try to get out.
I love that you called it a signal, because I think that's exactly what we're trying to decipher. And I think the signal inevitably is made up of one part data, so the assessment and something, and one part human, as in what do I get from them? My question to you, Kuba, is that a 50-50 weight when it comes to junior hires? Or do we shift the balance because we recognize they don't have that experience?
I'm not sure I get a question.
Okay, so I think we're at an advantage when we hire a tech hire versus maybe marketing or business, especially junior, because we have an assessment. Usually, you're right, we have some data, and then we also have our personal feelings and what you just called the signal, right? Do you weight what you learn from the data and what you feel about this person equally, or is one more important because you recognize they don't have the experience?
So like I've learned to kind of eliminate the feel factor as much as I can. I'm trying to like be as unbiased as possible and kind of look for like certain things and kind of try to measure them and not only rely on this feeling. And you know, of course, this technical assessment is the thing that you see before the interview, and it kind of, you know, sets the stage for the interview. But it is also often a great starting point to talk about. You know, I often take people for the interview that like didn't perform like best, but I saw something interesting there, and this is like a starting point for me for the interview. So I don't really see this as like two different things, and I don't really like talking about feelings when it comes to hiring people.
Yeah.
It's not Jedi.
That is the ultimate developer answer. Not Jedi. Do you guys have anything to add, Colleen or Kathy?
I think one of the things that I'll add there, I think usually, typically, technical aptitude would always come before what we call behavioral attributes. And everything that we're doing and everything that we're trying to do with training our interviewers is to stop that and to let behavioral attributes be just as important. So we actually ran an exercise recently where I sent a Slack message to 10 different interviewers on that interview for HubSpot for various positions. And I didn't say like, hey, just for campus or anything. I just said, what makes a great person on your team? What makes an engineer on your team great? And they had all of these things to say about collaboration and coachability and communication being most important. So like, okay, great. Our interviews need to reflect that. So leveling that playing field, yeah, technical aptitude, we can if you know something, how are you teachable? You know, we want to talk about that. It's just as important. So I think evening that out is going to benefit the junior talent that isn't coming in hitting every technical question out of the park, because that's not the point. The other thing that we did is we said up front, it's okay if you don't come to an answer at this technical question. What matters is how you communicate throughout it. And if you sit there and you're silent and you blow through it and then you just have an answer at the end, that's actually not a very good interview because you weren't able to communicate. It's just as important. And even if you find that the question's easy and the technical question's easy, that's fine, but you still need to be like, okay, I'm going to stop and just tell you exactly what I'm thinking right now. And that's a skill set. That's something that we need.
And I know people talk all the time about culture fit, which has its own hidden agenda. I like to flip that and say culture add. What is this person going to add to our team? What is this person going to add to Okta? Do they have different experience? Have they worked on cool projects? Have they, had this amazing internship? Or what can we teach them? So I think those things go hand in hand.
100%, 100%. Well, and I think part of it too is how we communicate the value of the assessment to candidates in the first place, right? So we all have our feelings, and I'm sure that the hiring managers have feelings about the assessments, but where I often see that breakdown is how we actually communicate to the candidate, like, hey, you're going to take this, and this is what we do with it, and this is what I'm looking for. I actually saw a tweet the other day from a junior engineer who was kicked out of not kicked out, he ended the process at Facebook and Google because he tried to correct his code. And apparently, like, correcting your code is a no-no. Making any edits is like a no-no for them. And I couldn't help but think to myself, how terrible, right? Like, assessment, theoretically, our interview process should enable candidates to get to the end. Theoretically. So my question here is, how do you communicate the value of the technical assessment to a candidate, especially someone who's junior who probably hasn't done this a million times?
So we're very deliberate about saying certain things. So we have a coding assessment that you get in advance, and we say to them, I don't care what language you do it in, I don't care how long it takes you. If you need to walk away and come back, that's okay. I actually don't even care if you get to that final answer. What I care about is your process throughout it. And so we can see all like the pull requests that they send during it. And so we do tell them that, right up front, we're not looking for some like perfect final answer. And this isn't a race. Nothing about this interview process is a race. So just like take your time, take a deep breath, look things up. In the real world, you're Googling things all the time, right? So why aren't you doing that during an interview process? Even in our final round interview, if someone gets stuck, we're like, well, how would you Google this? What are you going to do to look it up? So really taking that pressure off and just being like, this isn't about a final answer, because in the real world, you're not sitting developing and needing to do things all on your own. Like, you have a team around you. So act like that throughout your entire interview process. Use all of the resources that you have and don't be afraid to do so. So we send pointers in an email. We have a couple blog posts about it too that we'll send to students in advance of their interview. And we do a prep call with them and say it again there. And then when we greet them for our final round, we're like, again, I want to tell you again that what's most important here and what's not as important, and what we're actually going to discuss after this interview when we talk about how you did. So we tell them straight up, right off the bat, exactly what we're looking for and exactly what we're going to be talking about. And that, getting to a final answer is not going to be the most important conversation.
And I think for us, within any coding exercise, setting codility aside, because codility, again, has timelines and things like that with it. But any part of a technical interview, it's rare that a candidate does get to the answer. And I know a lot of times the engineers are pretty amazed and they'll say, oh, and we managed to get to the answer and start a second problem. But it's more about, I tell candidates, we want to see your thought process. Talk out loud the whole time. And I also let them know, I said, your interviewer is going to give you hints. So if you get stuck, it's okay to say, I am stuck. And your interviewer will help you work through it, but you've got to listen to them. So those are the big hints. And if someone does that, they'll fly through the technical interview. Again, taking hints, talking through the process, all of those things.
Yeah, I would like to address one thing that was like in your question, Katrina, that like developers should get like to the end, of the process. So like for me, the biggest problem is they are not getting feedback, not getting like to the end of the process, and this is especially true for junior developers. And like when companies are like going through this, tons of junior developers, they often like decide not to do this feedback part because it's just waste of their time. They already assessed that they don't want this developer to join them, so they it's easy to skip feedback there. And it is like actually the worst thing in the world that you can do to a developer. Like, you have to understand that like me as a developer, I'm like this feedback machine. This is how I learn to code. This is how my mind is working. This is how all the tools that I'm working in are working. I'm typing, code, and I can type like run my code and see like a bug and see what is wrong and fix that. So this is how I work. This is how I think. And then I interact with a company and I don't get feedback at all. Like, this is hopeless. Like, yeah. I think this is the biggest mistake when it comes to like hiring junior developers, and I try to fight it all the time.
I think
that was my biggest learning curve with working with engineers. Was the first time they offered me feedback on doing like an info session. I'm like, I don't want any feedback, but they're so used to doing feedback all the time that it was no big deal.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that like we say a requirement for being an engineer here at HubSpot is, and a lot of companies, is communication, your ability to communicate and talk to each other. And then a company doesn't give you feedback. Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's completely contradictory. We should be able to provide that as well. I know during our debrief meetings after an interview, I'm like, okay, we're not moving forward with the candidate. What am I telling them? Tell me the exact 3 things. Like, how are we going to make them better? Especially with junior talent, because you better believe they're interviewing next year. And we want them to be successful the next round. And usually concrete things that they can do to improve during that year. And we want to make sure that we give them that so they can come back and nail it next time. It's huge. And I love seeing that we have to get ready for somebody who's interviewing for a second time with us, and then they get that job. It's the most rewarding offers to give. I love it.
Yeah, and they talk to each other, right? So like, it creates this kind of sentiment like, okay, so I had this interview and they like didn't accept me, but there was this amazing tech leader there who coached me for a whole hour, and he's so smart. And like, suddenly like all his friends know that this company is great and great people works there. So it's
yeah. 100%. I actually saw that when I was looking at some of the posts from engineers about hiring junior talent, which I think we rarely give them the spotlight, right, from a developer, what's happening on the junior side. And something that they mentioned in a few articles where they would point to a certain company that they had heard were actually doing junior hiring, and they would tell everyone they knew about it because it's so rare to offer a really good process around this, or real junior jobs, real entry level jobs. And I think part of the real entry level hesitance, and I've heard this before, I'm curious if you guys have heard it, is that people don't want to spend a ton of money to train someone and have them leave. I have heard that so many times. What do you say to that? Because I think it's a cop out.
I think it's way more dangerous to not train somebody and have them stay.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do then?
Yes.
I mean, that's the answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think like they will leave because this is what market is telling us, and all the developer surveys and reports are telling us that those junior developers are really quick to jump and change jobs. So like the better your process of teaching them, because they are also looking for the opportunity to grow their skills and looking for those great leaders a lot to learn from. So if you have them, they will not jump ship.
Yeah.
And
Well,
our SVP of engineering, he's very open about letting people move to different teams. And his philosophy is, I would much rather have them move within the company than leave. So a lot of it too is if someone does want to experience something different, does want to be in a different team, that they can do it.
That's
totally,
great.
totally. Well, and I mean, software developers right now, their unemployment is under 1%.
Considered
Under
fully
one.
employed. Yeah,
They're,
fully
yep,
employed.
exactly. And so I'm sure some of the people on this call are thinking about their plan, but they're also thinking about how they can actually attract these people to their program if they're not getting that word of mouth from engineers who are just so excited about the program they have now. So I'm curious what you're doing to attract, or Kuba, what you specifically would suggest as an engineer to attract other engineers to your program.
Mm-hmm. I'm like an advocate of like giving value to people. So for example, instead of doing a hackathon, actually organize a workshop or a massive workshop, whatever, but something that is actually giving the value to attendees and sets you in this position of being a mentor, being a coach, because then it's super natural for those people to either come to you or again talk to friends and say, okay, there's this amazing company and I learned so much during this weekend, and now you like creating this employer branding. And yeah, it's for me, this is like a go-to strategy to always look for something proactive and giving value to developers out there.
Yeah.
That's your cue, Colleen. Let's talk about that women's web app, because that workshop is actually, right? Isn't that exactly what
it is? So not to sound too much like a HubSpot fangirl, even though I am, the whole idea around this company is that you're living in the inbound methodology, which means that you're providing content, you're providing something to somebody in order to get them as a customer. So that's all around inbound. So we take that same approach to our hiring. We love to say it's kind of like oh, by the way, we're hiring too at the end of anything we do. So the Women's Web Workshop is something that we started 3 years ago, and it's now a global program. And what it is we had so many people coming and saying, like, I can't get an internship because I have nothing. I know how to code, but I haven't done anything in practice. Like I don't have an internship. I don't have a group to put a side project together with. So we wanted to create really a community around that. So what we did here is we have a workshop that it runs 4 times a year on a Saturday, and you come in and you start an application from scratch. So you learn how to do that. We have bunch of engineers that come and volunteer to be mentors during it. And at the end of it, the idea is that you have a working web application that you can go and you can expand on, you can do whatever you want with it. But then we also teach you how to put that on your resume so that when you do go to submit your resume to any company, it's like, oh, I can talk about this. This is tangible. I can show it to you. I can talk about it, and I can talk about kind of how I learned to do it. So that is one of the things that we do, and we do a lot of like, micro versions of that when we go to campuses too. Ultimately, like, no one wants you to stand up there and just talk about what your company is and what your company is doing. Like, you want to learn something because, you might not end up working here. So what can you do and take somewhere else too? So really just leveling everybody up.
I think another thing too is you've got to get out there. So, for example, last week we sponsored a Girl Geek dinner. It was something that we'd wanted to do forever. We had 120 attendees, but so many companies now are pulling back from having their university recruiters get on campus, go and talk to people, and you just have to. We're at University of Waterloo next week doing. We've got speakers coming in to talk about machine learning and what we're doing at Okta, and we've already got 200 people signed up. So anyone who says that they can't find the talent, they're not there, they're not getting out there and doing things.
Yeah, so like I want to like mention something that Colleen said, because like I think this is like a brilliant advice, like help them make something that works, something that they're proud of, because being hired for a first time is a lot of self-esteem, not only about the CV, right? So like I really like this advice.
Yeah, me too. Well, and I love that it's the work, and then it's like, and this is how you tell the story that goes with the work. So they can apply to a job at HubSpot, they can apply to a job anywhere. I'm curious how you take that out into the real world. So Kathy, you're talking, I agree. We need to be out there. We need to be present so that we can break down that barrier of like, this is company, this is candidate. We do not meet unless you want a job. Like, it's so archaic. So I'm curious how we can bring that human feel and some of these experiences to those one-off interactions at a career fair or an event.
I don't do career fairs.
You know,
Okay. Yeah. Really?
I will only do them if we've got the chance to interview the next day, and there's maybe one place that does that. We do employer info sessions and workshops. So what we'll do is we'll get on campus. I'll have a couple of engineers come with me. We will get together with a tech club, sponsor something, provide food, and that's how we meet students.
So I think the thing about the career fair is I find I've obviously gone to them before, so didn't just blindly make the decision, but what I find is I sit there and I'm like, let me tell you what HubSpot is, and let me tell you what HubSpot is, and let me tell you what HubSpot is. Like, that's not really the point of recruiting. So going back to, how am I providing something for you? How can we teach you something is way more valuable, and it shows off how smart our engineers are and the types of things that they're doing way better than me sitting there and being like, yeah, they're so great. Like, that doesn't really anymore.
Don't you want to work here? Come on, I'm cool, and we have these balls.
Yeah.
So cool.
Take this keychain. Like, no, it doesn't. That's not how it works. I think especially
you leave with a stack of resumes that's this big, and you don't remember anyone.
No. Yep. Absolutely. And students, what we're seeing more and more is they want to go to a company and they want to work on a team that's going to be challenging and interesting, and they're going to learn something, like, probably more than I think I talk about that more than I talk about like what you're going to make for money. It's way more important to talk about what you're going to learn and the types of things you're going to be able to work on. So putting an engineer up in front of a group of students and being like, let me tell you about my week. Like, let me tell you about all the things that I'm doing. Let me tell you how cool this tech stack is. Let me tell you about all of that is way more valuable. And that's when you have students asking really engaging questions, and just really partaking in it in a better way. And that tells you exactly what it's like to be at HubSpot without me having to sit there and give you a spiel about, XYZ things. It's just more valuable.
Totally. I was really surprised to hear both of you be like, nah, I don't go to that. I love that though, because it's the antithesis of everything we want our candidate experience to be. And so many people just buy into it because they were told that's what they were supposed to do.
I mean, if you're a newer company, if you have a new presence on campus, it's important for branding. If a student hasn't heard of you, yes, it's great. But again, you're not going to have the one-on-one contact. You're going to meet 300-400 people and not remember anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I also think, just a side note to that, we use Handshake here to post a lot of our positions to campuses, and Handshake's like the virtual career fair now. Like, you go on there, and that's how you can find companies that are hiring junior talent. That's how you can find companies and figure out, some quick hits about who they are and what they're doing. It's way more effective, and then they can reach out to us on Handshake, and we can reach out to them. Like, it's much better that way. So any universities listening right now that aren't using Handshake yet, use it. It's the best thing for your students, trust me.
Totally.
I think that's a way better way.
And I totally agree with that. And from an employer perspective, the ability to be able to post one job to 20, 30 schools like that is just amazing. Or if you're going to visit a school, you can find out everyone who has applied from that school and invite them to your event.
I love that.
Yep, in like 30 seconds. It's awesome.
Totally. So let's career fair over there. Out of the picture. What's the best event, most successful event you've ever held for junior tech hiring? So we can show people the good example, not just lament on the bad one. And I'd love to start actually with you, Kuba, as someone who's part of that, maybe when you were in the hiring process or on the other side.
So there's this great format called Code Retreat. And Code Retreat is like, actually it can be like 5 or 6 hour event. And then you have like developers coming there and learning how to do like real pair programming and test driven development. And it is like multiple sessions, like 4 sessions, and every time you're pairing with like different people, and after the session, which takes like 1 hour or so, you delete the code. So there is this, no code after the session, no pressure to show off, no pressure to like actually finish something. The only thing is this is this learning experience, learning from the other person, learning the tricks, all the tips, like the way they use the code editor, the way they think about the structure of their code, all the things that you've never encountered. You suddenly have the opportunity to learn 4 times during, like the event that is like so short. So you get a lot of value. At the same time, like for me as an organizer, it is not so difficult to run, because it's kind of like running itself. I just have to like intro everyone to the rules, and then I will have seniors and juniors throughout the room. So juniors will pair with seniors sometimes, so they will have this great opportunity to learn from seniors. And the more people I can get like from my developer team to participate, the more effect I can get from this event. But this type of code retreat way of doing workshop works really great for me.
I love that. And I think that's exactly that's what you wanted your candidate experience to be like. Like, oh, they've met multiple people and they've become, they've had all these interactions. Who wants to go next? Because I know you've all done really incredible things in this.
We sponsored a club at University of Washington called Husky Tech, and it's an idea I stole from another school, but brought it over. It's called, what we did was hack the interview. So we went and brought 10 engineers. We had whiteboards everywhere, and probably had about 80 people there. So they broke up into different groups, and the engineers talked them through how to do a whiteboard coding challenge. Just how to think through things, and gave them feedback. And the students loved it. It was great for us because we also got to see how the students coded.
Yeah.
I feel like mine has to be the web app workshop. I'm trying to think of like another example.
It's okay. No.
Biggest you, but I'd say the one other thing, echoing Kathy from earlier, she mentioned going to University of Waterloo and doing the ML talk. That alone, like saying, we're going to talk about machine learning. I know we did a talk on campus about why we switched to React. And it was one of our most well-attended events. So really being there, sitting there, letting people be like, I'm dying to know how you decide on your tech stack. Like, why do companies make these decisions, and how is a really important thing to give to students as well. So I love doing those. I love really being able to talk about why we're making the decisions that we are, so that they can make more well-informed decisions. But web app workshop's still my favorite. Special place in my heart.
And it sounds like having your developers on board is pretty fundamental to every one of these. So how do you get them to care?
Oh, it's so easy.
Because they're desperate for help and they want to sleep.
That's part of it. Like, oh, you want to have a good team? Great. Okay, come help me. But honestly, students need the help to get in, to get started, and they were all in this position once. So that level of, just being able to relate is so prominent across the team. So when I say the first women's web app workshop that we ran, actually, I was like, my biggest concern, I'm running this on a Saturday. Like, I'm going to need volunteers. How am I going to get people to attend? I know the students are going to come, but how am I going to get volunteers to come? I had 50 engineers show up to help. It was way more than I needed. Some of them were bored at the time, but it just really, they want to improve diversity on our teams. They want to have the best talent here. They want to make sure that the products that we're building is really awesome. And the only way to do that is to help out and to share the story. They honestly, it's so easy. That's the easiest part of my job, is getting people to care.
I love that.
And it's interesting. It seems much easier with engineers than it does with other parts of the business.
Yes.
I don't know why, but engineers love to go places. Another thing on our wiki, we've got an intern wiki page where I post every event we've got going on, what schools we're going to. And of course, every engineer thinks that their school is the best, so they will always volunteer to go to their school. And we have the same with new grad. And so things are there. It's filled before I even head out on the road. No problems whatsoever.
Yep.
Yeah, so I sometimes meet tech leaders who are telling me that they are only hiring senior software developers, and it is so not right. Those senior developers really need their junior developers. I have this craving inside of me that I want to share my knowledge. I want to give this value. This is part of what makes me a senior developer. So for me, this is why it's not that hard to get them to attend this kind of events.
I love it. So we're running up on time, but I want to end this by asking each of you what you wish you had known way back when you started in junior tech hiring. Something that you know with all your heart today that you really wish you had known maybe a little bit earlier. Something that surprised you. I always like to end this way because I think it kind of sets everyone out on we realize none of us are perfect. We're all building something and it takes time. Just because we ended up on this panel doesn't mean we know all the answers. So whoever wants to start, feel free. I can start, actually. I learned something today from all of you that I wish I had known earlier, that developers really want to be in this position of mentoring and that they are highly empathetic. I think there's an impression of engineering as a department that they are not highly empathetic leaders, that they don't run with emotion, and I'm sure that comes with a lot of the gender bias that we imply with that group. And I find it really fascinating, and something that I think every person should walk away from this call thinking about is that we need to assume that our engineers want to help, and then create ways for them to show who they are and who we are to create better recruiting.
I can go next. That is definitely like such a good point. Is what I was going to say is meeting people where they're at a little bit more. I think recruiters in general have such a bias to action. It's like, got my head count, gotta go, gotta nail it, gotta get it.
Yes.
But taking a breath and being like, let me be more strategic to make sure that early on in my hiring process, I'm filling the top of my funnel with the correct, diverse talent that's going to provide different types of mindsets when they're here. I think a lot of the time focus so much on the bottom of the funnel and like, how am I going to perfect that actual final round interview? And yes, that's important. And the questions that we're asking that are important. I know I talked about that a lot today, but what's even more important is making sure that people get that first step in and setting them up for success. So I think the biggest advice that I would give back to myself is be more strategic from the get-go. And don't just run and try to solve everything. Take a second to figure out like what the problem is and plan out how you're going to solve it before actually attacking it.
Totally. Love that. Kathy?
Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand with Colleen about the people aspect. My background was technical recruiting before coming into university recruiting, and making a job offer to a new grad or an intern is very different than making a job to someone who's seasoned. Coworkers laugh when I say, well, they need to talk to their mom or talk to their family. For a lot of them, it's the very first job offer, or, you know, how do you talk to a new grad who has competing offers? And I tell them at this point, I'm your advocate. I'm the person who helps you, but just remembering that it's a new process for them. So as much as we can help them through, even if they don't accept, they will come back to Okta at some point.
Exactly. Kuba, last but certainly not least.
So this is the thing that like for my whole career, I like almost I think I felt being senior like after 1 year of programming. And after 2 years, I thought, okay, 1 year ago, I was so stupid. I didn't know nothing, but now I'm senior. And then like each year there's this lesson when I see the road I went through, and I've learned that I'm not the only one. And developers sometimes have this perception that they're already there, or they are not there. Like, I would never admit, like, having 2 years of experience, that I'm a senior developer. I would never say this, but I would think so. So I kind of learned to be really like receptive and listening and understanding when talking to junior developers, because you don't know where they are in their head, and tuning into this working together mold always leaves this part somewhere out there, and you can focus on really like understanding this person and start to working with them.
That was awesome. Great way to end this. I really appreciate, I want to give a shout out to Codility for getting all of us in the same place to have this conversation. Please go check them out, check out their assessments. And I just seriously thank you to all three of you for bringing everything to the table and sharing all of this, because I think your transparency can create better experiences for everyone. So thank you. All right.
Thank you.
That's our show. Thanks for coming by, guys.
Bye.